friends, and welcome to your next video. This is the second video on capacity. And the first video, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch the last one that I did on capacity. So we talked about the importance of when we are working with very tight capacity and when we are healing, how important it is to know the things, people, places, situations, events, certain triggers that we might have that are too far out of our capacity. And again, while we're healing and working with very tight or small capacity range, the importance of sort of not getting our systems blown out, so to speak, on a regular basis. And that means we might have to limit. It comes down to boundary setting, limiting certain things that we might not joyful experiences necessarily, but limiting certain things that might be just too much, or doing those things just a little bit less until we grow our capacity and until we have a system that can handle and take on a little bit more, and doing all of those things in a titrated way. Titrated being a really key word here for nervous system work and retraining, and a whole topic that I'm going to get into in another video at a later date. So this second video on capacity, once we kind of have an understanding of where our capacity is, right? We know which things might trigger us. We know when to kind of, maybe today's not the day to engage with this one person, or you wake up feeling like really, really tired. Maybe your chronic fatigue is feeling really, really off the charts, and you know that, maybe doing that social engagement or that big farmer's market, grocery store run, or whatever it is that you have on your list, it might not be the day for it today, okay? So learning how to work with what we have and being really realistic about that. So the second part of this is, how do we build it? And just in the same way that you wouldn't train for a marathon, you wouldn't decide you want to run a marathon and then just on your first go around just run, try to run 20 miles. And this is very obviously sort of saying the same thing that I said in my last video on the importance of sort of that retraining, building, small steps, building, right? Limiting those big things that send us out and taking on the world in these tiny little doses with what we can handle. But we want to push those edges just a little bit. And before we push those edges though, okay, so this is kind of what pushing those edges feels like. So what we do when we have a lot of chronic stress, childhood adversity, maybe we have abuse or neglect or trauma that is stored in our body and it's packed really, really tight. We have to start sort of unpacking that in order to grow more room and capacity. That is what we are all doing here. That is the main purpose of the main goal of trauma healing, is to unpack those things, release them. And the first step to doing that is understanding and learning how, in real time, to feel a sensation, to actually feel that sense of overwhelm, or that sense of however it is that your body manifests that fight or flight response or that freeze response, whatever symptom it is that comes up for you, being able to feel it as it comes up and be with it, and then follow the intuition of how to release it. Now, following intuition is a little bit more advanced. And so as we do this work, I think I've said this before, as we do this work, we grow our intuition. And a lot of this is practice. We might overshoot releasing repressed emotion or releasing that stored trauma 1,000,000 times. And we might undershoot it 1,000,000 times. But we continue to work with it. We continue to work at it. And we continue to get stronger and understand our physiology better and better so that we know exactly how, when something comes in real time, in our real life situations, in our real life events, when something comes up, feeling it, knowing, oh, my heart is racing. I'm in fight or flight right now. My hands are palmy, or my palms are sweaty. My hands are palmy. My hands are sweaty. My palms are sweaty. You might feel shaky. Your voice might start to constrict. You feel like you can't talk very well. That's part of the freeze response. It could be functional or non-functional freeze response. Your hands and feet are getting cold. You're getting really tired. You're going into shutdown, And so knowing when these things are coming up, I'm actually out of my capacity, understanding that this is the point of your capacity that you've reached, where your symptoms are starting to arise. Your nervous system is speaking to you, okay? And then being with it without judgment, shame, or fear, and then releasing it in whatever way you intuitively feel you need to release it. And this goes along with following the impulse of what your body might need to do in that moment to release. And that can look different for everybody. But the most important thing that I want to make clear in this video is learning to be with a sensation, okay? So let's say you decide to go, because I used this example in the last video, that you want to go to a friend's birthday, okay? But it's a loud, very overstimulated place. And now you've got a little bit of nervous system language on board, and you have a little bit of understanding about it. So you want to kind of maybe see how you feel and see how you do. And you go in to the event, to the birthday party, and it's very loud, and people are kind of coming at you, and maybe your system starts to react. Your heart starts to beat. People are trying to talk to you, feel like you can't really talk, you're kind of frozen. You stay with the sensation. You might actually leave, because that's actually an example that is kind of a big example, right? So you might actually leave that event. You might go into your car and you might sit for a moment. As long as you're safe, you might drive home, get a friend to drive you home. Depends on the situation. You want to make sure you're safe and that your body feels safe and that you are in a very, very safe environment, okay? Or that you can get to a safe environment. So let's just say you get to a safe environment, you get home or whatever, and your body still feels activated. Instead of going to whatever resource or I don't want to use the word addiction, but sometimes it's a substance. Sometimes it's binge watching TV, right? You sit and you just stay with the sensation that's happening inside your body. Now, sometimes the sensation can actually just move through you while you are remaining present with it, just on its own. sometimes you might get the urge to shake, to scream a little bit. Maybe you feel really overwhelmed and you want to cry. Whatever it is that your body sort of tells you it needs in that moment is what you allow to actually move through you. And so a lot of this work now, again, this is getting into like more advanced nervous system and trauma healing stuff when we start talking about how to release it and all of that. Just being with it, being with the sensation and not avoiding it, and having a really keen awareness on what our capacity is when we've gone outside of it, when we're working within it in a safe way, when we're sort of feeling our edges, knowing when we might need to keep our boundaries up in order to keep our capacity in a safe range. All of that awareness is an amazing first step and exactly where we would all want to start in healing. Before we even get to how we release it and all of that, the awareness, so much healing happens with the awareness. And I will say to you that I don't believe I would have healed. Well, let me rephrase this. A big reason why I healed and how I healed is because I have a great awareness around what my capacity is. I tune into what it is every day. Maybe even on a couple of times a day, you know? I tune in, I understand what my range is, how I can work within it, how I can feel and touch the edges in real time as things come up, because they always do in real life situations. And now I'm at the point where I can release it and I'm growing more capacity, and I've grown a lot more capacity in my system. And so over time, slowly, I have become less symptomatic and I've been able to take on more of the world. This has been a few years in process. But when I first started, all I was doing was having this awareness around what was going to send me over the edge, how to remain safe, and learning to feel my sensations in my body and what was coming up. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to talk about why it's so important to feel. And so maybe from now until then, maybe you're watching that video has already been released. But what I would encourage you to do before you even watch that video is see if you can actually feel your body. See if you can actually feel the internal environment of your body. See if you can actually feel the sensations of your body. See if you can feel your heartbeat. See if you can feel your body as it sits, the heaviness of your body. And notice how hard that is, or how easy it is. And so most of us are not able to do that very easily. And there's a reason for all that. And I will get into that in the next video. I hope this video finds you very well, and I will see you next time. Bye.